Hi everybody, this is Peter from Mail Pattern Boldness. Today I want to talk to you about top stitching. Now a lot of you had comments and questions about top stitching, specifically in reference to the quick sew jeans I just finished. Now, as I'm sure you already know, men's and women's jeans are covered with top stitching. Now, top stitching is primarily decorative. It's usually those double rows of stitching that you'll see on a back pocket, on a waistband, along the fly. Sometimes it's actually part of the construction of the pants themselves. For example, on a flat felt seam, that first row of stitching is the row that holds the two pieces of fabric together. One side is then trimmed, the remaining side is folded over the other side, and that side is then stitched down along the outer edge. So you basically have two rows of top stitching. And that's integral to the construction of the pants themselves. Now, a men's shirt, for example, is covered with top stitching. There's top stitching on the cuffs, there's top stitching on the button placket, on the collar, on the sleeve placket. And very often it's top stitched in the same color as the fabric of the shirt, so it's not as noticeable, but not always. So, as you probably already know, I really like to top stitch on straight stitch machines. Machines like my Singer 66 treadle, and also my Singer 1591, which I'm going to show you shortly. I find that when I use a straight stitch machine, I have much better control because the presser foot is very narrow and I can see exactly what I'm doing close up. A zigzag foot is considerably wider and it's harder to see, at least for me, to see exactly where the stitches are going. Now, when I used to top stitch with a zigzagger, I would use edge feet. And those are feet that control the distance of the stitching from the very edge of the fabric. They're guides, basically. So one guide would keep the stitching at approximately 1/16 of an inch from the edge, and another guide would keep the stitching at 1/4 of an inch. I usually used those clip-on, clip-off, detachable feet. It wasn't difficult to do, and it did provide great accuracy, and I'm sure some of you have used zigzaggers all the time and would prefer doing top stitching that way. So I'm going to show you both ways of doing top stitching, with a straight stitch machine and a straight stitch foot, and with the edge guides on a zigzagger. Okay, so here goes. Okay, so here I am at my treadle. Let's use a little bit more light here. Now, what I'm going to do as a guide is use the inside edge of my presser foot. If you notice on the straight stitch presser foot, the sides are of two different widths. The right side is approximately 1/8 of an inch, and the left side 1/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is line up what I have is a piece of denim here. And I'm lining up the stitching right at the inside edge of the right side of my presser foot. And now watch, I'm going to start stitching. Okay, there we go. And what I'm doing is sewing along. I'm using as a guide that inside right edge, the inside right edge of my presser foot as a guide. Now I don't want it, it can't be right at the edge, but I want it, say, 1/16 of an inch, and that's approximately what it is. And you can see coming out the other end that looks pretty good. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is sew that second line of stitching. Now the second line of stitching, I want approximately 1/4 of an inch in from the edge. So as my guide, I'm going to use this wider side. You see this wider side of the straight stitch presser foot. Okay, so now I'm using the left side, this wider side, as my guide. And where I'm really focusing my eye is on this outer line of top stitching that I have already done. And I just want to make sure that line and the edge of that presser foot stay exactly the same distance apart. Now, certainly this takes a little bit of practice, but it's not very difficult. Sometimes, when I have nothing to do, I'll just sit at my treadle and practice my top stitching. And it's really fun and very relaxing, especially on the treadle. So there we go. You can see how that's coming out. I'm going to cut it now and show it to you. There we go. Now you can see that is pretty accurate. And it certainly is accurate as anything that you would get with an edge foot, I think. Hi everybody. So here I am at my Singer 1591. This is of course one of those gear-driven machines. It's so great with thick fabrics like denim, although it's often great. It's also great with chiffon. So I'm doing what I did on my 66 treadle. I'm lining up the edge of this denim with the inside right foot of my straight stitch presser foot. Okay, so am I going to make it there? Okay, off we go. And you can see what a great job this does. And I have real top stitching for here as well. Okay, so this is that first line of top stitching. It really looks nice. Now, I'm going to cut that thread, and I am going to do my second row of top stitching using the inside left foot, left side rather, of the presser foot. So I'm lining it up right next to that stitching line that I've already completed, and off we go. And again, my eye is focused on that outer edge of the presser foot, making sure that it is evenly lined up with that first line of stitching. And here's how it looks. In my opinion, that looks really nice. Okay, so here I am. Can you see that I am at my Viking? And now I'm going to top stitch. Is that better with the light? Maybe. I'm going to top stitch with my zigzagger. Now what you see on my zigzagger right now is a regular zigzag foot. I'm going to remove that. Just snaps right off. I'm going to be top stitching with these two snap-on attachments. Okay? This, do you see how the guide is sort of in the center right there? It's black. This is the guide that I'm going to use for the outer edge of top stitching. This edge stitch I'm going to use, presser foot, I'm going to use for the inner edge. You see the guide is much further from the place where the needle is going to pass through. Alright, so first I'm going to start with that presser foot for the outer edge. Snaps right on. I'm going to pass my thread through. Okay, now this Viking has needle adjustment, and that's really important because if I don't have the thread far enough, if the needle isn't passing far enough to the left, I'm at risk of having the thread not hit the fabric. Okay, so here's the fabric, and I'm putting it just at making sure that it's just to the left of that guide. Can you see? It's just to the left of that black guide. And now I'm going to start top stitching. And again, I'm working on that outer edge. And off we go. Now, when I'm top stitching with a zigzagger, I really don't have to pay as close attention, because as long as the fabric stays to the left of that guide, I know that the line is going to be straight. So let's have a look. Okay, there's the line of stitching. It's a little tight, but it looks fine, and it's certainly very, very straight and professional looking. So I'm going to clip that, and now I'm going to attach the other attachment, and this attachment I'm going to use for that inner line of stitching. Okay, so let's see, where do I need to adjust the needle position? The needle could pass through that hole. Just that would be perfect. Okay, so let's back up a bit, and now let's start stitching okay, with the other edge foot. And you can see I'm keeping the fabric is hitting the guide. Look, it's feeding through that hole. That's not a problem, but not ideal. Okay, and let's see how it's coming. It's coming out the other end. And let's see how it looks. Rip the threads. Pull out that thread that got fed in there. There we go. Okay, and there's my top stitching. You can see that is very, very straight. I probably could have used heavier, thicker thread, but you can see that that top stitching is very, very straight. So there you go. You can top stitch with a zigzagger and you can top stitch with a straight stitch machine.